The preseason is coming up, and I'm sure that a lot of you guys are looking for new champions to pick up during this upcoming preseason. In my opinion, the preseason is the best time to learn the game. As an extension, of course, this means that the preseason is the best time to pick up new champions that you wouldn't normally risk trying to play during the regular season. You're able to dump as much time as you want into trying to learn any given champion, one-tricking that champion for as long as you want until the new season starts. For this reason, today we're going to be looking at some of the best one-trick champions that you should check out this preseason. If the champions on this list do sound intriguing to you, then make sure to play a few games and see if you like them. If you haven't already, make sure to check out our website, GameLeap.com. There we have hundreds of guides, all done by challenger players, sorted into a quick and easy to use courses system. We have courses both on the 5 fundamental roles as well as champion specific courses. So if that is something that interests you, then make sure to check it out using the link in the description below. Now kicking off the list right away, we have one of the faces of one-tricking, RIVEN. RIVEN is, of course, one of the hardest champions in the entire game to master. There's a lot of animation canceling to learn in her kit, and on top of that, the 3 charges of her Q make it so that you can use pretty much any combination of abilities and it will work. Since all of her abilities flow so smoothly into one another, you want to make sure that you're animation canceling and double casting as much as possible when playing RIVEN. Now, I'm going to be honest. Your first few times playing RIVEN, you're not going to be able to animation cancel everything together smoothly, and it's probably going to feel pretty clunky for you. That's okay. RIVEN's skill floor, while not being the highest in the game, is still remarkably high, so you're going to take some learning before you're able to play this champion at a decent level. My advice to new RIVEN players is try to play her at least once every single day. This will allow you to gradually improve, and you can still mix in other champions with your RIVEN. I do play quite a bit of RIVEN myself, though never in ranked, and I find that the more frequently that I play it, the better my RIVEN mechanics will be. The reason that I personally don't play RIVEN in ranked is I know that I would have to practice it a whole lot more than I currently do, so my RIVEN will never be up to par to a point where I feel like I can comfortably play it in high elo ranked. Next up, we've got a very similar champion to RIVEN. Very high skill floor, very high skill cap as well, and this is going to be YASUO. For a lot of people, YASUO is their favorite champion, and for a lot of different people, YASUO is their least favorite champion. So if you are wanting to one-trick YASUO, just know that his ban rate is pretty high, and that's something you're going to have to deal with. Now, as far as general playstyle, YASUO will almost always have cooldowns available, and you just need to know how to use them properly. YASUO has the potential for some insane outplays. He has a lot of mobility, he has the potential for quite a bit of CC as well, and he's got really good sustain with the current rune set. The thing that makes YASUO stand out is he's one of the only crit-based melee carries in the entire game. He builds like an ADC, but his kit is more similar to that of bruisers, meaning his playstyle is entirely unique. Now, if you are wanting to one-trick YASUO, then again, I highly recommend that, just like RIVEN, you play him at least once a day. When learning YASUO, you really want to focus on not overdoing it with your abilities. Just because your E is available to use on a creep doesn't mean you should use it. One of my biggest pet peeves with bad YASUOs is they'll see a wave and they'll instantly just dash through every single minion in the creep wave. Please do not do this. Yes, there are plenty of different ways to use Yasuo's E, but mindlessly dashing through an entire creep wave over and over again is not one of the optimal uses of Yasuo's E. Admittedly, Yasuo is not a champion that I find myself playing all too often, simply because I really don't like crit at all. The RNG aspect of crit has just never been enjoyable to me, and while yes, you will end up at 100% crit pretty early on into the game, you're also going to be having to play that game at 50% crit until you're able to get your second crit item. If this is something that's not a drawback for you, then by all means make sure to play at least a little bit of YASUO in this preseason because you might really fall in love with him. Next up, we've got ADC. And if we're one-tricking ADCs, you know it's gotta be DRAVEN. Now, I always get a little bit wary when mentioning DRAVEN, especially to newer players, simply because the DRAVEN community is toxic. There's really just no way around it, and while not every DRAVEN player is toxic, a lot of them are. It's going to be hard for you to find learning tools in order to improve your DRAVEN play, and most of your improvement is just going to have to come from raw games alone. However, when it comes to ADCs, none of the other ADCs are a match for DRAVEN in terms of one-tricking potential. DRAVEN's axes just add so much to his gameplay. You need to make sure that you're juggling as many axes as possible. You need to make sure that you're not spamming your W every time you catch an axe, but only when you need the movement speed or attack speed. You need to make sure that you're going to direct the axe in a proper direction so that you can still catch it without putting yourself in a compromising position. When you're playing a team fight as DRAVEN, you're essentially playing 1 second in the future. You need to know how enemies are going to react to you, where they're going to aim their abilities, so you know where to put your axe. If you're able to master all of this, then your damage will be completely incomparable to any other ADC in the entire game. Simply put, nothing matches a DRAVEN in consistent DPS when it is played perfectly. Next up, we have Jungle, and this might be the role where you can one-trick the most champions out of any role. You have Rengar, Kha'Zix, Nidalee, Elise. But if you want to one-trick one champion and see the most success out of them over any other champion, it's gotta be Lee Sin. The difference between a good and a bad Lee Sin is just insane. I cannot begin to explain it. In fact, good Lee Sin players will do things that I didn't even know was possible. On my jungle account, I can play Lee Sin up to a master or grandmaster level, but I still consider myself a bad Lee Sin. Using this champion's mobility, his passive, getting his damage down properly, all of his combos, all of these things are things that you need to focus on while playing him, and you need to do perfectly if you want to see the most success out of Lee Sin. On top of that, you need to stagger your abilities' cooldowns properly. There's animation canceling. There is just so much, and I'm sure there's more that even I don't know about. While Lee Sin's skill floor isn't nearly as high as the other champions I've mentioned so far, his skill ceiling might be the highest in the game. Lee Sin is for sure a champion that if you haven't played them, you need to at least try him once. Personally, I used to hate Lee Sin so much. Playing against him was so frustrating for me. But it all changed when I played one single game of Lee Sin and instantly fell in love. In fact, if I were to pick a new champion to one-trick and never play anything else, it would probably be Lee Sin. Just like the other champions on this list, you want to try and play him once a day. Now, if you are enjoying him a lot and you want to improve your Lee Sin gameplay, then one thing that you should do is just try something new. This doesn't mean you have to try something new every game or even every day, but every once in a while, just try something and see what happens. Throw your abilities out in a different order, try doing something different with your mobility. Anything, just experiment and see how it goes. I am not joking when I say the sky is the limit with this champion. I'll say it again, Lee Sin might have the highest skill ceiling in the entire game. Now, time for the final entry on this list, and he's kind of a support, kind of a solo laner. I'm talking about PYKE, who realistically can be played pretty much anywhere. He might receive changes in the future that make it so that solo lane PYKE is no longer viable, but Riot has tried to nerf solo lane PYKE so many times, and it will just not go away at all. Now you might be wondering, well, why is PYKE on this list instead of Thresh? Typically, if you're thinking of a hook champion to one-trick, you're going to think that Thresh, of course, is the highest skill cap, and that was true for the longest time. PYKE, however, has taken over as the king of the hook champions. Now, using his abilities isn't anything too special, and he doesn't have all too many different combos. In fact, his comboing is the easiest part of his kit to learn. The hardest part about mastering PYKE is learning how to use his mobility, and boy does he have a lot of it. A good PYKE might be one of the most frustrating things to play against, because you can poke him down, but then he's just going to get gray health. A good PYKE is going to be able to bob in and out of vision while still maintaining an insane amount of pressure. He can soak crazy amounts of damage with his passive, and he will constantly be threatening the backline with his ultimate if he has other divers. Add to this the fact that it is so hard to hit PYKE with skill shots because he has such an insane amount of move speed. He gets move speed from Moby Boots. He gets move speed from his W, he gets it from Ghost Blade. There are so many different ways that he can just walk out of your skill shot that it's pretty much impossible to hit a good PYKE. PYKE is going to be running laps around you while you're just desperately trying to hit one skill shot to land some sort of damage on the champion. The better your movement is on PYKE, both your map movement and your micro movements, the more success you're going to see. If that sounds fun to you, and you're looking for a support pick that can solo carry games and be flexed to solo lanes, then PYKE is definitely the pick for you. Now that does just about do it for today's video on the top 5 one-trick champions that you should try out this coming preseason. If you haven't already, make sure to check out our website, GameLeap.com. There we have hundreds of guides, all done by challenger players, sorted into a quick and easy to use courses system. We have courses both on the 5 fundamental roles as well as champion specific courses. So if that is something that interests you, then make sure to sign up using the link in the description below. As always, I'm Panther, I hope you learned something valuable, and I will see you in the next one.